Okay, well, the time is officially 11 over in Australia and sorry, 1 in Australia and 10 in Singapore. So I think I'll just get started real quick. So hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you might be. Thank you very much for joining our webinar today. I'm Geraldine, Marketing Manager at Sage, and with me I have Sumitra Gunala, who's also the Marketing Executive at Sage as well. So we are super excited and delighted to have you join us today for our webinar titled AI and its Impact on the Conduct of Research with the world-renowned Dr. Zina O'Leary. A little bit about Sage and getting some housekeeping before out of the way first. So Sage is a global independent publisher at the forefront of research and scholarship. Our mission is building bridges to knowledge, supporting the development of ideas through research process to scholarship that is certified, taught, and applied across all fields of social science. So please note, webinar currently being recorded, so it will be available for public view on our YouTube channel right after this webinar is being done. There'll be a short Q&A segment towards the end of the session. So for anyone with any questions for the speaker, please feel free to drop it into the Q&A section or via the chat box, and we will attend to it as soon as we can. If, however, we are not able to get to every single question, we can always address them via our blog post, which will be published after the webinar is done, along with the recording. And if you have a minute to spare after the whole webinar, please do take part in our survey. Let us know how we did. And after the survey, there'll be 3 lucky winners that will get to win a limited edition exclusive 2-way bag. We have 3 of you be picked up, and we'll be contacting you via email to let you know which ones of you should be over to your place. So that I'll pass over to Sumitra.
Thanks, Geraldine. Now I'm very excited to introduce our speaker to everyone today. As an internationally recognized leader in research methodology, Dr. Zina O'Leary is no stranger to the discipline, with an extensive history of consultative work in both the government and sectors. Dr. Zina was also the research coordinator for the Center for Environmental Health Development at the WHO Collaborating Center. She's currently an adjunct professor at the Joseph R. Biden Jr. School of Public Policy and Administration at the University of Delaware, as well as senior fellow at the Australia and New Zealand School of Government. Within her list of publications, you might be familiar with her power-packed title, The Essential Guide to Doing Your Research Project. Its updated 5th edition is due to publish in January next year, so stay tuned for that. Now I'll hand over the screen to Dr. Zina, who will take us away on AI and its impact on the conduct of research. Over to you, Dr. Zina.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Sumitra. Thank you, Geraldine. And as Geraldine said, good morning, good evening, whatever time it is where you are. I am thrilled to be here with you. I am streaming in from Greenville, South Carolina today. But I know we have people from all over. I think the registrations were well over 1,000. So it's good that you are here with me. What an interesting topic we have today. AI and the conduct of research. It is come on so quickly, and there is a lack of consistency in policy and understanding and practice when it comes to AI and research. So I thought we should share some basics today. What I would love to do is have you engaged. So the chat is on. You can type in questions as they come up. You can put questions in the Q&A, but we probably won't get those till the end. So if I'm talking and something's of interest and you have a question, pop it in the chat and I'll see if I can answer as we go. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and I'm going to take you through a little presentation. But as I said, please pop in your questions and let's have a chat as much as we can. All right, let's see what we've got here. All right, hopefully you can all see that.
Yep, we can.
Perfect. All right. Artificial intelligence and its impact on the conduct of research, something every student and professional researcher really needs to get their head around. It is something that I'm just putting things where I can see them. It's something we all need to think about. All right. So let's start right away with what AI can do for the researcher. and it is a lot. It is an amazing, disruptive technology, which has the ability to really assist us in our research. I think the real challenge has been that AI has come in after we've got all this data coming from the internet. So we have unprecedented amounts of data that we can now analyze when it comes to research. Well, technically, we could analyze when it comes to research. And we've been talking about big data at SAGE and at universities for the last 10 years, right? There's big data. We have census data. We have all of this data on blogs, on posts. But honestly, it's been extremely difficult for the average university researcher, let alone student, to be able to do that type of analysis. So AI is something we've actually been waiting for when it comes to the programs and apps that allow us to look at qualitative data. Now, I'm going to type in here. Oh, no, I can't type that in. There are some newsletters that you can follow. Neuron is pretty good, and Superhuman AI. And hopefully someone can type that into the chat for me, because I think mine only goes to hosts and panelists. So Neuron and Superhuman AI, and they keep me abreast of some of the new programs that are coming out for research analysis. A new one just came out for qualitative interview analysis that looks fabulous. But there are some red flags, and there's things we need to think about very carefully before we use them. All right, so generative AI, what can it actually do for us? Well, absolutely, it can help you locate data. There is so much data out there that we can locate it, it can identify it, it can extract it, it can summarize, it can synthesize, and it can do analysis, right? It's fabulous. Anything to do with finding data, particularly all the data that's hidden in the internet, all the data that we have on Facebook or Instagram or on Reddit, all of these mass sources of data, we can try to find things. I remember the first study that Facebook authorized was the ability to look at the posts 6 months prior to an individual committing suicide. So someone commits suicide, could you look at their posts for the 6 months prior and determine what was happening for them? But to extract that data needed the type of AI programs that we now have, right? So very good technology for getting through the data that is just so massive. We really are coming off the back of such a limit to data. You know, even when you're doing a PhD, you might be limited to 50 interviews and a couple thousand surveys. And that was a massive amount of data, massive amounts of data. Now we're talking about hundreds of thousands of posts, of blogs, of images that we can now look at. So we need to be able to handle that. All right. So anything to do with data, generative AI can be very, very, very useful. All right. It's also wonderful for understanding literature. Okay. When you're doing research, you are not the first person or the only person to be asking questions in a particular area. You are actually contributing to a body of knowledge. You are someone who's looking at the landscape of what we know and what we don't know, and then figuring out where is the gap that needs to be filled so that I can do research that can add to our understanding of something. Or perhaps you're doing research that's really applied and you want to solve a problem. Well, you're not the first person to look at this problem. What has been done before? What is known, right? Will solutions and understandings that have been explored in the past by other people suddenly be applicable in my situation? So there's a whole raft of literature surrounding what we do. And again, we go back 30 years and we didn't have access to a lot of literature. There was card catalogs, and there was a few journals held by our library, and there's interlibrary loan. And then the internet comes up, and there's all of these articles. We have access to these massive databases. But it's been challenging, very challenging to be able to get through it all. You know, when I did my PhD, which was in the when was that? In the 80s. It was trying to find enough literature to do a really good lit review. Now you go into even Google Scholar and you have 327,000 different articles. So what generative AI can do is help you with this. It can help identify relevant literature. It can summarize this literature for you. It can extract the data. This is nice. It can analyze across different papers. Okay? You can identify gaps in the literature. All right. And it can even identify research gaps. And it can help you write. Now, big alert here, plagiarism alert. I don't recommend using AI to write for you. It's tempting, it can be helpful, and if you use it, you have to be extremely careful that you are in control of what's being said. I personally don't like handing over too much of my writing to AI. I ask questions of AI. I actually use Claude Pro 3. I find it gives me the best answers. And boy, it's tempting. It is so tempting to have AI write for you. But we're going to talk about why this is a challenge and why we need to really be careful that we are in control of what's being said and how it's being said. And we need to be able to have our words be our own. Otherwise, the risk of handing over your writing to an artificial intelligence program means that you're not thinking through all the complexities. And it's not that AI isn't good, it's just that when I'm writing, right, and I'm an author, I write for Sage. Every time I write, and then I rewrite, and I rewrite some more, I'm not only making it better in terms of the quality of the writing, I'm making it better in terms of the quality of the thinking. Every iteration improves my thought processes. So if I am just taking something from AI and submitting it, I'm not going through the iterations that evolve my thinking. So let's be careful with that. In that vein, Ulrich is asking, what are your thoughts on generative AI creating systematic reviews on a research question and then publishing this result? I think AI is fabulous when it comes to doing systematic reviews. All right, you can ask it specific questions. You can set parameters. Does everyone know what a systematic review is? It's when you take all the research studies that have been done on a topic under certain parameters. We want to look at things that are, you know, X amount of respondents done in this time frame, in these languages, and then we want to put them all in a funnel and put them into that funnel and spit out more definitive answers, right? So all the research comes in and then we try to understand it. Now, when we do it quantitatively, or we can do it qualitatively, and when we do it qualitatively, that's a systematic review. AI can be extraordinarily helpful in finding the articles and putting them in, but you have to set the criteria and you have to understand what's being spit out and whether or not that makes sense for the research question. The challenges that I find is that AI tends to talk off the top of its head and not really get into some of the challenges that come up as you're thinking. So it's like, bam, spits out that first answer. Now, as an experienced researcher, if I look across a whole bunch of research articles in a systematic review, and I was to spit out my first answer, probably wouldn't be very good. I have to think about it, I have to grapple with it. So we have to do the same thing. So use it as a tool, but I would not publish its results. And we'll go more into that in the future. Let's see. So those two sources, right? The newsletters, Rick, are the neuron and superhuman AI. I'm going to type that in for you now that I can do that. Neuron and superhuman AI. I find just reading those two newsletters every day keeps me abreast of a whole bunch of stuff. And even that, sometimes it's too much. But it's a good, yeah, Natasha, I agree. Superhuman does do a good podcast as well. All right. So that's what I think AI can do for you. I'm hesitant about the writing, and I'm going to get more into that. Now, let's see. There's a question on Q&A that says, what is Sage's stance on authors using generative AI? So I just did, as you saw, like the 5th edition of my research methods book, the Essential Guide to Doing Your Research Project. And I used a little section where it was myself and my new co-author, Emma, and Claude, my AI, and I had it write this little section as an example of what AI can and cannot do. And I had to fill out a form explaining what was in what I did, how I did it, when I did it, how much of it was done. So from a author's perspective, that's what Sage said. All right, let's see. So let's get on to the next section, which is what can AI not yet do for the researcher, right? What can they not do yet? And there's a bit, there is a lot. These are the things we don't want to hand off, all right? AI, not good for formulating research questions and or hypothesis. Why? Why is this? Well, first of all, and anyone who's ever had a class with me knows this, I am a stickler for a good research question. I think it is the most challenging part of doing research, and it's the hardest thing to get students to recognize as difficult. In one of the subjects I teach, we have to solicit research questions from agencies, and they send us these research questions, but they're not researchable. And people say, well, these aren't very good questions. Well, I'm not surprised. It is a skill. And it's a skill we don't want to hand over. Again, the development of a research question is not something that just happens like that. You think of a research question, then you realize it's not researchable, and you do reading, and then you realize it's been done, or we want to do it different. The iteration, the back and forth, the back and forth, and the back and forth. There's so much in it. And so to think AI can come up with a research question when I expect a student doing, let's say, a 1-year thesis to take at least 4 months to come up with it is not realistic, because it comes from all your experience, your knowledge, your reading, your curiosity. That needs to be driven by you. So we need that deep understanding of the research field, the knowledge, creative problem solving, all of that is necessary. So yes, I definitely would not hand that over. All right, what about designing research methods? Same thing, right? Because we want to look at not only what might seem most logical, but what's going to work for you? What's going to work for the various stakeholders? There's so many complexities and nuances. And in research, particularly applied research, where so many of you are doing, there's a small p politics that's happening, right? So there's people at play. There are power issues. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, which is very complex. So designing research methods is not just about logic in research. There's context, there's timing, there's personalities. It's your desire, your motivation. Those are the things that, yes, maybe we can put in some ethics. AI should learn about that. But all the nuances, and you are a player in that. AI is not right for that. I also would not use AI to fully interpret data. Sure, it can do stats, and it can do some of the theoretical qualitative analysis. Absolutely. Use it as a tool. Use it the way you would use other qualitative research programs, right? So there's Nudist and In Vivo, and there's Atlas TI, and there's a whole bunch of qualitative programs. This is another, right? This is going to be another, and it might be better, and it's going to be more sophisticated, more advanced. But when you take any type of qualitative analysis, you have to have your head around it. You have to look at it. You have to look for all the things that are there, not there, all the challenges, the complexities, the emotions that are being, it's not just the words, right? It's the tone, all of that. Okay. So we need to think about this. So and for stats, sure, it's the same thing when we have stats, right? When we're doing statistical analysis, you've heard the phrase lies, damn lies, and statistics. It's so manipulatable. We need to keep our eye on it all the time. Right, let me see. Questions? Yeah, that little paper, that was just a section in that book, the 5th edition of the Research Methods book. All right, we're going to talk about ethics in a second, Deborah. So here's a good question. Where do we draw the line when our higher degree students use generative AI to assist them in formulating research questions and research methods? There are also those who use ChatGPT for statistical analysis. There are these ethical uses with acknowledgement of such uses, even if students review suggestions product generated by AI. All right, so my goodness, what a challenge for us lecturers, because I could give you the advice, which I'm giving here about what AI is good at and what it's not good at, but very, very hard for us to police any of this. Students are using it to come up with research questions, and some of them are quite good and basic for the student, right? And you can learn how to make those quite tight. So I think we have to, as lecturers, really determine what is acceptable. And for me, that is AI as a tool, not as a substitute. How we police that, honestly, I am not sure. That is something that we're going to have to constantly be challenged by. These programs are getting more sophisticated all the time, and I don't think the ways we can capture that as lecturers is keeping up. All right, we'll go to the next little bit here. I would not use AI to write cohesive and informative research reports. You can't write a complete and well-structured report that seamlessly integrates different elements like the lit review, methodology, findings, discussion, and conclusion. You can try. You can have it write this part and then write that part and put it all together. But I'm telling you that it's extremely difficult. And I'll go back to the thing I said a few minutes ago, which is when you are writing, you are constantly evolving your thinking. And any good research methods lecturer will ask you to write as you go, right? Start writing your lit review, because as you write it, you'll have to rethink it and advance it. Same thing when you're writing your analysis. It's going to help that process of discovery and understanding and sharing. So that's how we work it. All right. Let me see what this question is. Kiora. It's about a New Zealander. The environmental trade-offs and costs of using AI. And I can share my decision-making processes for that. Look, I think that I'm going to get to this, but I think that with AI, it is a tool, not a substitute. That would be the thing I would take away. It is a tool and not a substitute. All right, we're going to save some of these questions for later. Let's go to the next slide. All right, here's something that I think is really important, which is how do you best communicate with generative AI when you're asking it to help you? And this taps into ethics as well. Now, the approach that you read about on the internet when you're thinking, how do I prompt AI? How do I get the best responses? Well, one of the ways we do that is to ask AI to take a role. Please answer this as you are a researcher. You're an experienced researcher, or you're a student researcher, or you're somebody doing research in this area, blah, blah, blah. Take a role. Now, this can be quite effective. I used it once when I'm selling a house in Australia, and I didn't like the write-up from my real estate agent. And so I asked AI to rewrite what Vanessa wrote as a very experienced real estate agent who sells vacation property. And it was really good. It was really, really good what they wrote. Okay, so I asked it to take a role. So it can be very effective. Here's my problem when you're doing research. When you do that, when you ask AI to act like it's a researcher, you're handing over the process. You're asking it to take on too much responsibility. You are saying, all right, you are the expert. You get me the answer. And then what are you? All you are is an AI prompter, right? So here's what I would suggest. I think the best way to use AI as a student and as a researcher is to treat AI as a brilliant but completely naive, unpaid intern. Why? Well, puts the responsibility in your court. So let's say you have this intern and they are exceptional. They're the most brilliant person you've ever met. They are fast. You give them something at night before you leave at 5 o'clock. You come back the next morning and it is done and it is beautiful. So much work. Oh my goodness, so much is out there, right? Now, they don't even need all night. Generative AI does it in 3 minutes. Okay, now what are you going to do with it? You've asked this new intern, this unpaid intern, to do this task. And they don't have real world context. They don't have experience. They don't understand the politics. What they're doing is combing all the data that's been put into them. Reddit data, blog data, Facebook data, all of the stuff that's on the internet, good, the bad, the ugly, the incorrect, the correct, all kinds of things going in there, right? The internet is full of misinformation and disinformation, and it's all a part of it. So when you're asking this incredibly brilliant intern to do something and you get it back, are you going to just say, oh, thanks for that, I'll just put that in the newsletter, or I'll send it out to the clients? No, you're going to look at it because this person's made massive mistakes before. So you're going to look at it and you're going to think, okay, oh, you know what? Geez, this is really good, but can you double check your sources? Or I think we've gone off track. I should have asked you to do it this way. Or, you know what? Break this down and make it dot points. Make it 3 times longer. You know what? I realized I really need to think more about the ethics of this. Can you think about that? Back and forth and back and forth. And that back and forth is the evolution of your thinking. That doesn't come when you ask AI to take a role and you pretend it's the expert and therefore it's the answer. What you want is to treat AI as a tool. And in this case, I like this analogy of the intern because you know what? You have to check the ethics. You have to check the accuracy. You have to check the referencing. You have to check all of it. And you would never just put it out there. And you know what else you can't do when it's an intern? You can't steal their work. You're going to have to take that information in and as it's meant to be, which is fodder for your brain and for your thinking. That's what we need. So you would never publish it. And you know what? You publish something from the naive intern and they breached ethics all over the place. They've breached privacy. They have used data without permission. They have made mistakes. That is on you, 100% on you. So use it as a tool. I would love, and I do have Claude Pro 3. It is a brilliant intern, but I do not trust it. I've even said to Claude, like, Claude, are you making stuff up? And then it apologizes to me. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I should have realized you only want truth. So you are in charge. You are responsible. You need to make sure that you are the one following through on everything. And iterate, 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 constantly come back and do it again, because it evolves your thinking. Not only does it get rid of inaccuracies, it evolves your thinking. All right, question from Avery. In your view, have ethics committees successfully adapted to the use of AI in research? It seems to me there's probably a lot of work to do in updating the written guidance, ethics statements, et cetera, provided to such committees. Thanks for the question, Avery. Do you know what? We are so far away from having any consistent policy and practice when it comes to AI and research. And my opinions here today are just that. They're what I, as someone who is close to research and is constantly writing in the area, right? This is the logic that I see that's going to work for my students, and trying not to ignore two things. One, the incredible advances in research that AI is going to give us, but also trying I want to not be naive and understand that this is what our students are going to be doing anyway. So I think we need to sit down not only at a university level and understand what we will accept and not accept, but as a community, we need to start thinking about how these tools can be managed. And my next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges. All right, thank you for the question. Now,
Hi, I think we're facing a little bit of technical issues on Dr. Zina's side, but I guess while she's like getting stuff back up and running, I just wanted to call out to everyone that thanks for everyone's questions. We're definitely receiving them. Keep them coming. You might not be able to see everybody's questions as we go along, but that's because we wanted to ensure everybody gets a really great, non-intrusive, non-disruptive webinar experience. So you won't get to see stuff that the host and panelists send to you and you send to us. So it's kind of like a cleaner experience overall. But if any kind of questions and Q&A, feedback, so on and so forth, feel free more. We welcome everything. So please drop it into the Q&A. Zina will definitely respond to them as soon as she can, or like whenever she listens to our content. Alongside, if we're not able to answer any of the questions, please do not worry, because we are consolidating them, each and every single piece, and we'll go through all the content. Zina has promised to actually look at everyone's questions in detail, and she would get back to us with responses to your questions. So these questions would actually be consolidated and then published onto our Sage Asia Pacific blog online. And we'll send the URL and everything in the follow-up email and the post-webinar email that everyone should be receiving. Basically, when you, how will you know that it's up? Well, first off, you can follow us on LinkedIn. Hi, Zina. Yeah. Are you all right? Oh, you're on mute though.
well, that's good, because my computer just completely died. So
No
I don't know
worries.
why it's plugged in. I'm sorry, but we are on my laptop now. And let me just move over and see if I can get a bit more light.
Sure thing. I was just telling the folks that keep the questions coming. You might not see everyone's questions, but you're definitely getting it. And Dr. Zina will respond to them after the webinar is done and be published on our blog. You can follow us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on X, and then you will get an update when the blog and the recording is ready for your watch.
All right, I'm just opening up this PowerPoint on the other computer, and then we'll be back in business in just a second.
No worries. Life happens.
I don't know what happened. It just died. All right, let's see. Can you guys see me sort of okay?
Yeah, I'm good at least.
It's a bit dark. It's a very dark room. Okay, now let me share my screen.
Sure.
It says that I'm disabled for screen sharing, so I might have to enable that again.
Because, yeah,
because I'm a new participant now.
Yes. Let's see. Sorry.
I was on a roll too, boy, and I don't know where it was. I'm all flustered.
Sorry. Back end, could you help? Yeah, make a co-host, and I think you should be able to share about just about now. There we go. We're back, guys.
All right, that's exciting. Let me just put that on. Okay. I think where we're going to go from here is to the responsibilities. I think that's where we were. Oh, I know what I was saying. I was saying I'm getting an awful lot of questions about which program is right for this task. And I really can't answer that because, my goodness, they're changing all the time. And honestly, I don't have my head across all the various programs because as soon as I learn one, something else is coming in that's better. So what I would do is just, you know what I do, I would suggest doing is use your favorite generative AI program, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever it is. And you can ask that to give you a list of the best program for your task, because that's all I would do. I would go into Claude and say, all right, what are the latest and best programs for qualitative data analysis? What are the latest and best programs for searching literature? What are the latest and best programs for systematic review? And that would be how I would get the most updated list. All right. Let's see. So let's go to this next slide. What AI research responsibilities do I need to manage? All right, big question. Big question. If you're going to use AI, and I know you are, look, as I was saying about that question on ethics, we have to be realistic. And whether we want students to be using AI or not, they are. They definitely are. So what do we have to do? Well, as a researcher, as a student researcher, we have to verify all AI-generated information. All right. I think I saw something that there was a recipe for something, and it was going around, and AI said use glue. And the reason it said that is because it tapped into some information about when you take food photos, they often put glue on them to make them shiny. So they had that in the recipe. That's the kind of thing that can happen so easily when you're not verifying your information. So it has to be verified. You have to cite the tools properly. And Avery, this might help you with a list of some of the things that have to go in a policy, right? We have to cite the tools. What are we using? How are we using it? When are we using it? You have to understand the AI limitations. Remember, this is the very brilliant, yet totally naive and without context intern. Absolutely no context for the politics of a situation, the real world implications of a situation. And this tendency to make mistakes, what they term hallucinate. All right. You have to maintain academic integrity. And that means we have to write. Part of our learning is learning how to write. We have to be able to argue. We have to be able to make arguments. And so while you may use AI to generate some thoughts, please don't sell yourself short of that opportunity to learn through iteration. Have to use, and that's going to help your critical thinking. Honestly, if you hand everything over to AI, we're all going to be getting the same results because we're not using critical thinking. We're not thinking laterally. We're not thinking outside the box, and you aren't learning. Got to respect copyright. And this is something that I've seen that. So I'm in a band and we were looking at writing songs, and I was looking at the AI programs to help generate songs to see what's out there. And it said, you use this program, I own the copyright. Well, isn't that interesting? You don't have to do anything. And it comes up because I said, write a song about a dog that's black and white and barks a lot. I suddenly own the copyright. This is something that's going to be debated in the community, particularly when it comes to research. So we have to keep our eye on that. It's a moving target right now. But AI doesn't generally hold copyright, but it may be gathering information from sources where it should be copyrighted and it's not. So be very careful with that. Ethics, including privacy. You know, if I was given this brilliant intern a job and it came back with all this data, it is my responsibility to make sure that ethics aren't being breached, to make sure privacy is being protected. I have to take responsibility for that. So I need to know where the data comes from. That's part of the challenge with AI. So use AI as a starting point. Absolutely. But don't use it as a final. Disclose AI use when required and stay informed of AI guidelines. And we do need to start to develop them. Is there any reliable, I'll just looking at a couple of questions. Is there any reliable AI detection tool you can suggest? No, not at the moment. They're constantly in development. Again, ask your favorite AI what they suggest. I think we are, as universities, university lecturers, ethics committees, it's going to be a while. It's going to be an ongoing challenge to think about how we stay ahead of AI. It's moving so fast. We finally learned how to check plagiarism with a couple of the tools that we use, where we run our students' essays through plagiarism checkers. But this isn't the same thing. A lot of it is supposedly new types of writing. So it's very hard to detect. All right. Let me see if there's any. Oh, thanks. Lindsay's saying you're composed with a tech glitch. That's all right. You know what, Lindsay? The tech glitches happen virtually every day now. Okay, let's go to my next slide, which I think is just at the end. I think we're just at the Q&A. So look, if I was to summarize, it would be this. Research has been constantly evolving, right, through tech. I had a slide on that. I don't even know where it went. But we started off, right, with card catalogs and face-to-face interviews and surveys done on paper. And everything is really advanced technologically. And this is just one other thing that we're going to have to deal with as we become more adept with this technology. And the ethics that comes with that is going to be such a challenge. So what I would suggest that we do is really check in with your lecturers, really check in with your ethics committee, make sure you're citing, and make sure you're not depriving yourself of learning. But also recognize how amazing these tools are going to be when it comes to mass amounts of data. Nothing. And I'm teaching actually a course on the compatibility of the human edge in using AI. I teach that for O'Reilly Media. Nothing can replace our intuition. Nothing can replace our curiosity. Nothing can replace our desire to solve problems for humans with human insight. Nothing can replace the empathy that we have when we're trying to understand the position of another. These are things that AI, I hope, never gets so good at that the human touch becomes redundant. So if you are using AI, use it as a tool, just like all the other tech tools that have come up. But hold on to your power to understand, hold on to your power to question, hold on to your curiosity, hold on to your learning, hold on to your insights, and be totally and utterly responsible for what you produce. That is on you. All right. Geraldine, Sumatra, I'm ready for some Q&A if there's anything in particular we should be looking at.
Yeah, tons of questions, really. You
Yes.
have a lot of things to follow up on after this session wraps up. But I think like one of the very underlying ones that came up was like, how can AI really help researchers with effective data analysis more?
Yeah, I think anytime we're looking at, well, okay, let's say you're doing a survey. We had such advances when all of a sudden we could use SurveyMonkey and it would do basic statistical analysis.
Yeah.
Now we can use surveys and we can have very sophisticated statistical analysis come in right away. Back in the day, old school, we used to have to put in the data and then we'd have to form our questions to figure out whether we're getting binomial data or categorical data or, you know, linear data, because that would affect the type of statistical tests I would have to run. And the good and the bad is that we don't have to know any of that anymore. You used to have to know all of these things around the way we form questions because it affects how the answers look and feel, right? So we don't have to do that. Now we just can write up a survey. We don't have to do that. You can just put in, I want to write a survey about this topic that touches on these things. And boom, you'll get a survey. Now, one of the easiest things to do in research is to write a really terrible survey with double-barreled questions and confusing terminology. So if I was to ask, my first draft of a survey would be terrible. It's going to take me 5 or 6 drafts to get something good, and I got to pilot it. Don't think AI is going to do a better job right off the bat. So you're going to have to work it, but it can help you. It can be a big head start, and then it can automate the analysis, and it can help explain that analysis. Now, you still have to know what questions to ask of the data. And then you still have to relate that data back to what you want to know and how it's going to help solve problems. But the mechanics of the statistical analysis are less necessary. Now, the same with qualitative analysis, right? If anyone's ever used a qualitative data analysis program, it's a big learning curve. And it is slow. You either got highlighters and post-it notes, or you're using like a in vivo and you have to highlight this and that. And you're looking for 17 themes with 17 different markers, and it's a lot. And there's only so much data we can analyze. Now, if I put the parameters in and I can upload all the transcripts, I can even upload, I don't even have to transcribe things. I can just upload video. I can upload audio. And then I can say, find the most common themes. And then I can ask it more specific things. Find the most common things around dissatisfaction. Find the most common themes around self-esteem. Find the most common themes around stress. Group them. Show me that by demographic. And so I can start asking these questions. And again, I got to hold on to all of this knowledge and what I need to know and what's important to know, but automation of the process. Man, I can handle 30, 40, 50 times the data in less time than I could do before.
It's
but
brilliant.
It is brilliant. But the more we hand over, the more careful we have to be that it's being used properly.
That
But
is
yeah,
so
it's
true.
exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah. I the one from Renee back, just calling out. I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrongly. She said, I love your analogy of AI being an intern without life experience. The analogy I use for students aligns with your point about not using AI to write material. I suggest a student's a gardener, and the rake is one of many useful tools. This is so cute. But the rake can't make the garden great while the gardener sits down with a cool drink. Makes a lot of sense. The rake shouldn't be expected to do the garden's work for her, them, or slash him. It's really good. Thanks,
Yeah.
Renee.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Generative AI, we call it artificial intelligence because it's supposed to be thinking,
yeah.
but we're not at the point yet where we've been fully replaced by AI, right? So maybe one day we will be, and we won't even be needing to have this conversation because AI is going to make all of us redundant in all our jobs, and then God knows what we'll all do. But for now, what we need to do is think about, how can I use my intuition, my experience, my knowledge, my empathy to really understand what's happening? And the rake doesn't have any of that.
Well, interesting that you mentioned this, because there was one that asked, what field do you feel is the easiest to be replaced by AI?
Oh, well, I think that my real estate agent, Vanessa, probably isn't going to write too much more of her script anymore. So I think those little writing, those little writing jobs are going to go. I know that, oh geez, I was helping someone, they had to put together a very typical policies and procedures manual. AI can do that because it was nothing new. It's been done a million times, and they just had to take that information, and it was kind of, still had to check it. But I think some of those lower level jobs, accountancy and all of those types of things, anything where there isn't a lot of discretion, it's pretty straightforward, is going to be done, which means all of our students need to be aware that they need to become better critical thinkers, better managers, better communicators, have that real empathetic listening skills. Things like that are really going to become much more important than the task-oriented things that AI is exceptionally good at.
That is so true. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about being human. There's one very interesting one that asks, how do we teach using AI in research to undergraduate students, especially to let them know that info generated by AI is not always right, as you mentioned earlier as well? If we teach a large classroom, how do we check in detail the proper use of AI in research?
You know what? I do demos. I love doing a demo. And it's, I'll ask AI to write me a little lit review. I'll say like, all right, write me something about why kids shouldn't eat too much sugar at lunchtime in school. Like, can you make this into something that's more like a journal article? All right. Can you add in a whole bunch of references? Now, can you check, and I'm looking at these references, I'm like, all right, can you check the accuracy of these references? Are all any of these things just hypothetical, or are they all factual? And you'd be surprised. Almost every time I've ever done that exam, I'm like, oh, sorry, we didn't realize that you wanted just facts. I just gave you some hypothetical situations. I'm like, well, what about your references, Claude? Are you making those up too? It's like, yes, I did make up quite a few of those just to be indicative. I'm sorry, I'll use real ones now. So when you can show the students that, and you might want to practice it at home, so you should make sure you get it to mess up, right? But practice it at home and give it some, but you show the students that, and that's really powerful.
Oh,
So a demo, because the students aren't listening, because we don't have time as lecturers to check everything, right? In high school, the teachers didn't check everything, and people have been getting away with AI written stuff now for a couple of years. So I think showing them that we have a way of looking for that, because you can put something into an AI program and ask it, do you think this is written by AI? That's not always full, but I think a demo is definitely going to get their attention. And you need to let them know that I will, I've said things like, I will randomly check 10 assignments against blah, 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 against AI, whether you do or not. Just let them know that you have the ability to check on them and show them how inaccurate it can be.
Yeah, that's great. Keeping the students in check. We've got one with Kate. She's asking about AI as an editing tool. Will all the data and writing come up as plagiarized on Turnitin? And I'd just like to add that in with Victor's question, just checking on universities developing policies and guidelines regarding AI and learning research.
I don't think it is going to show up all the time on Turnitin,
Mm,
because it's not as though you are taking big chunks of writing that from a particular source. AI is, if I can ask AI the same question in the same words on 2 different days, and it's written somewhat differently, So I don't know if Turnitin is been designed yet to capture AI. And people will say, oh, it sounds like AI. Oh, that's not enough evidence in court, right, to give a student an F just because it sounds like AI.
Yeah.
So it is a challenge. I don't think Turnitin has done it. That's why I try to be more upfront about the inaccuracies. I think we are going to see universities pay for programs that can try to capture it, but it's my ex-husband was involved in the federal police. He's a federal police officer, and it's a constant battle. Every time the criminals come up with something, the federal police are a little bit behind trying to catch up, and then this gets better, and then that gets better, and they're constantly, and I think it's going to be this battle where AI is going to get more sophisticated. Ways of capturing AI are going to get more sophisticated, and I don't know if we're ever going to fully catch up, to be honest.
I love the mixture of like optimism and a bit of bleakness along with the responses.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one more, right, Sumi?
Yes. You've been talking so much about Claude, Dr. Zina. So everyone wants to know, why is Claude your pick, over the other AIs like Perplexity or ChatGPT?
I tried all like 3 or 4, Gemini, ChatGPT, and I gave them all the same task, and it just seemed to work best for me. And I really liked the way it iterated back and forth. It seems to, just for my uses, it just seems to improve with each iteration in a way that I really appreciate it. And also, just reading those newsletters, it seems to be the one that is working best for me. But and again, that's a race. Now, as soon as I'm comfortable with Claude, something else is going to come up better because it's in the next edition. Claude's big limitation is that you have to type everything in, you can't talk it in, but that'll come. But I don't think one is necessarily better than another. It's just my choice. And I pay my $20 a month, so I got my $20.
Gotta get my money's worth.
That's right.
There is one, okay, I'm conscious of time as well, but there is one that says, you recommend, elaborate further what specific task you recommend as AI for systematic review, for example, conducting research but not screening, and use as a tool to check your screening results. I appreciate clarification about use of tool.
Yeah, look, I think that with systematic review, what you're trying to do is get a sense of all the research that's been done on a topic, and then trying to understand, all right, this has been done 500 times. Do I really need to do it again? And what is this research saying? If I read every report that's of quality, what's the definitive results? So AI can help you in sourcing that information. So you can ask it to search for journals, peer-reviewed journals over the last 5 years on this topic. So it can quickly find those journal articles. And then you can say, can you summarize the results of these into various categories that you can give it? Right? So you can just start to ask it all of these questions that you would ask. Imagine if you knew how to do a systematic review, you would ask yourself, all right, I got to find 600 journal articles. All right, now I got to cull it down to this. And now I have to do that. The things that you would ask yourself to do are tasks you can ask the AI to do for you. That's how I would use it. Again, as a tool. It's like my personal assistant.
Yeah, the intern.
My unpaid intern.
Yeah, with the rake.
Yes. My unpaid intern with a rake.
There's one like I think it's a question that seems to be repeating quite a lot from Suma in particular, that most higher education students know how to use ChatGPT and other AI tools to churn out responses, which are then retranslated from other languages, so on and so forth. So similarity index is something that's really hard to detect, right? So are there any ways like people can work around this, be a bit smarter with handling the situation?
I'm not really sure. Honestly, Geraldine, it's this technology is so quick. 2 years ago, we didn't even know what was going on with AI. It was just a vague term for most of us. And now we're all embedded in it with work and how to use it, how to avoid it, how to catch it. And it's moving too fast for me. I'm doing my best, and it's so quick that I'm not really sure how we stay abreast of all of the updates and all of the challenges and all of the ways of keeping it in check.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's really fast moving. We don't know what we don't know, as we were talking about early before
Yeah.
this, and people are just feeling their way around. But I am very conscious of time as well. And the thing is that we weren't expecting so many questions and so much like very, very participative people part of this webinar. So thank you everybody for everything that you've been putting to the chat. We will consolidate all of this to drop to Dr. Zina, who then has a lot of homework to do after this webinar to respond to people's questions, some
I
burning
do homework,
questions.
Geraldine. That was a long time ago.
Now you give homework.
Now, can I say one thing before we end? And that is that please know that the things I've said here are not the definitive answers for how to manage AI and research. These, because there are none. This is the logic that I'm seeing and the challenges that I'm seeing and a way of navigating through it that I'm finding most useful and most useful for my students. But it is not certainly any kind of consistent policy or the only answer out there. But I am usually
Very
right.
great words.
Yeah.
Love it. All
But
right.
Dr. Zina, you've definitely given us a lot to think about and sort of built all of our courage and confidence when it comes to AI. You know, seeing you being sort of this force of nature who's just like, just dive into it already. Like, stop being so scared. Like, it's definitely giving us all a better understanding on how we can benefit from this so much better. So thank you so much. This was great. And it was so great to see all the questions coming in and all of everyone just loving what you have to say. So it's really great to see all the chats and the questions. As Geraldine mentioned earlier, we will get to your questions in our blog article, and the web recording will be shared via email as well. So thank you so much for registering with us, and also do have a look at the pre-orders or e-inspection copies. You can just scan the QR code, and you can also send us an email, and we would love to help out further. So thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Zina, again for taking your time. And with this, we will end our session for today. Have a great rest of the day, wherever you may be. And on behalf of Sage, we thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.